Welcome to the Untrapped Podcast, where we're motivated and inspired about success, small business, and personal development. And now, Keith Kalfas.
What's up, guys? This is Keith Kalfas with the Untrapped Podcast. We've got Dan Platta, the home service CFO and founder of Best Damn Bookkeeping. You're going to want to take notes. This is like an entire free course, whether you're listening on the Untrapped Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or you're watching this on YouTube. Take some time to take notes. Dan has plenty of notes. This guy.
I got my notes today.
Bro.
Yesterday I was freewheeling. Today I got my notes.
And you're going to talk about and teach us.
I got two things today.
Boom.
We're going to get into the purgatories of scaling, the sticky spots in a business as you try to grow it, what causes you to go in it, what it feels like, what it looks like, so when you get there, you're not scared and disheveled, and what to do to get out of it. And then, as you'll hear about in those purgatories of scaling, kind of the underlying thing is you need to be really good at hiring and finding and leading people and building culture. So then we're going to talk about how to do that and some cool interview tactics that we found to kind of change the game and how we find and acquire talent to grow our businesses.
I put a post on Facebook, like, what's the biggest problem in your business right now? And so many people said finding the right people, people who actually show up to work and do a good job. So you guys have figured out a system for that.
We figured out a system, but and none of us want to hear it. Usually to solve that, the first thing you need to do is go look in the mirror, right? If you can't attract people, then who's going to want to come work for you? Like, do you have a job that they want? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the first thing you got to do is make sure you have a job and a company and a culture that people would want to come work for, right? If you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you do to interview people or how much you pay them. If you suck, they're not going to want to work for you. So the first thing you got to do is go look in the mirror. But we'll solve that later. We'll solve that.
Yeah.
It is the number one challenge, though, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we get into the purgatories here, is as we start growing a business, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, like when you start growing a business, you started that thing because you were good at the thing. You didn't start it because you're like, I want to do a thing where I'm a CEO of a 20-employee company with all this. Like, that wasn't why you started your business. You started your business because you're like, I need to make some money. I'm going to mow lawns or do landscaping projects or trim trees or clean windows, whatever it is that you do. That was why you started your business. What happens is you end up transforming into having a totally different role and a totally different purpose, and the job requirements when you get there just look a whole lot different. So we'll figure out how to address it. And maybe that's not the right business for you. Maybe you don't want to grow that business, right? There's nothing wrong with staying small and keeping the job in your business that you like to have, or growing a big business and you stay on the truck. Nothing wrong with that either. It can be done. So we'll explore all that.
Bro, you're talking about the purgatories of scaling. That is such an epic thing. We went out to dinner last night. We did a podcast yesterday, and I'll put these two podcasts back to back. So look in the show notes or just type in, whether it's in a podcast platform or YouTube, Keith Kalfas and Dan Platta, or Dan Platta and Keith Kalfas, and these will pop up. I'll put them in a playlist, so all the content we've done is together, because Dan is a great guy to learn from. And you said some amazing stuff, like you can be making really good money in your business and grow a little, and now all of a sudden that money's being just paid out like a purgatory, and then you got to grow through that and all these different things. So having some big, huge business from the outside might look super shiny, like, wow, my life is going to be amazing. But there's these purgatories you go through, and you're going to break that down.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have been there. If you've been in business for a few years, you've probably had the thing happen where you started to grow, and your mindset was, well, I'm this big and I'm making this much money, so if I double, I'll be making twice as much money, right? Like, that's a normal thought process. And if you've ever had that thought process and then started to grow that business, there's a point in there where you're making less money. You're doing twice as much work, you have twice as many problems, and you're not making twice as much money. You might be making $0 or half as much money anyway. And man, like, if there's a thing that causes small businesses to go out of business, it's that first time that happens to them. Because you're like, what the hell am I doing, right? You like question yourself. You question why you're doing it. If you're married or in a relationship, like, usually that gets really stressed during that time period because you're working 80 hours a week. And so all of a sudden it's just like, what am I doing? I'm working more hours than are in a day. My marriage sucks because I'm working so much. I hardly see my kids, and I have all these problems because I'm trying to hire these employees, and all these employees suck, right? Because nobody can hire anybody good, which we'll solve that problem later. But that's where our mindset's at the time. And I just did all this stuff, and now I'm making less money than I was. Like, screw this, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do something else, or I'm getting back on the truck, or whatever it is. And so a lot of us fall into that trap. And I'll talk our way through that. But part of the reason we fall into that trap, and you and I we just did a walk around the block, and we were talking about this, is you'll see it on social media, which is just a dangerous place to interact to begin with. I mean, like, we put this stuff out on social media because it's a great way to distribute content, but there's so much blasted out there about, like, people loving to pat themselves on the back. Oh, I did this and I did that and I got $1 million business, and here's my picture with all my employees and all my trucks, and here's how much revenue we're doing. Ain't nobody talking about how much money they're making and what their profit margins are. And if they are, they're usually lying about it. And why would you post that on social media anyway? But those big businesses aren't always making a shitload of money. I know. I have one of them. We're up to this point in our business this year, we've like broken even. It's late October. We've got 2 different businesses, and there's a whole bunch of challenges. One's doing a little over $1 million, and one's probably doing like $200,000 to $300,000 that we just started this year. Starting a new business is a lot of work, costs a lot of money. Like, it's okay that it's breaking even. Obviously, we'd love it to be not breaking even and making some money, but like, don't be fooled by the big companies doing millions of dollars in revenue. That is also a recipe for losing hundreds of thousands of dollars really fast, right? And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen if you scale a business, but everybody that's out there posting about all the revenue they're doing and all their trucks and all their employees, like, that might just be a cover-up for, I need something to feel good about because I can't feel good about my bank account, right? and like, not saying that anybody with a big business is having those problems, but like, they're not immune from struggling, and those problems get like 10 times bigger when your business is 10 times the size, because now you have the same financial problems and you're responsible for that many more people. All your employees and their families and their paychecks and their problems, right? Every problem they have is your problem. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the pros and the cons and what the trade-offs are. But I think part of the reason why so many people are like, oh, I want to grow $1 million business is because everybody that grows $1 million business loves to put on Facebook that they grew $1 million business. I'll be the first one to tell you, as a person that's done it a couple times, $1 million is the worst. Like, if you said, hey, Dan, what's the worst size business to have? I'd be like, $1 million. You have every single problem that could possibly be had in a business, and you don't quite have the financial means to solve all the problems. It's hard to hire really good leaders, but when you're at $1 million, you need really good leaders. It can't just be you being the leader anymore. And that's like, hiring technicians, that's hard to do. Hiring general managers, that's really effing hard to do. Right? And growing them and building that culture. So it's not, I mean, not to say don't do it, but if you're going to grow $1 million business, sure as hell don't stop there. You don't want to hang out there. You better get to like 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. A little easier at that level.
And you see all of the books for tons and tons and tons of businesses. And not only are you a finance major, you've been part of and own and built several different businesses from the ground up. You've gotten invited and you speak around the country on stages about this. So here comes Dan Platta, the bookkeeper guy. And then you get up with real world knowledge and experience. So you can connect everything you're saying back to the numbers, and from the numbers back to what's really actually going on in the business at these different stages. Mm. So when you talk about it, you're not just talking about it, you've lived through it.
I've either been the pilot or I've had a front row seat. And it's I mean, it's fun, but you gotta love it's like you're never immune to solving problems, right? It's just that the problems are different. And so, and we talked about this yesterday about how, like, what fuels you isn't the money. The money is the thing that we talk about because it's the common denominator. It's like a theme, but it's the doing hard things and overcoming and problem solving. That's the thing that fuels us. It's like the pride of doing the hard stuff. When you're running a multi-million-dollar business, like, you're not immune from problem solving. In fact, like, the problems you're having are way more intense, and because there's so many people dependent on it, it even gets that much more intense, and it's just more difficult to solve. Like the equation's more challenging, but equally, like when you overcome that, there's that much pride too. Like how cool is that when you can solve a problem at that level, right? So the problems don't go away. They just change. They get different. They get more challenging. And it's and like I said, $1 million is the worst because all the problems are still kind of yours. You're not quite at the level where, in general, you're not at the level where you found somebody else that can solve those problems for you, or you've trained them to be able to solve some of those problems for you. So it's like, it's a pretty lonely seat when you've got that level of problems and you have all those employees and you're still the one that has to solve the really hard problems. It can be intense. Not to say don't do it. Not to say don't do it. Just know what you're doing. Know what you're getting yourself into.
Bro. So when you are afraid of something, sometimes it's because you don't have the enough clarity and information about it. Mm-hmm. And then the more you go learn and you learn about the thing, the more clarity you get, you say, oh, wow, now I see. It's like fog, and you're moving the fog, and you're seeing a path, like a map, like a territory. So when you talk about purgatories of scaling, I want to learn. You got this notebook here. You got all these notes, bro.
I'm ready to get into it. We've skirted around it.
Yeah, I've had people email me saying, dude, I watched 3 times that podcast, the 12 steps to growing your business.
I forget what the hell we even called it.
Dude,
it was good.
We did this 1.5 years ago. Everything you said is still totally current, and people are taking notes on that, bro. It's changing people's lives and businesses, what you talked about, and I feel super grateful to be here and be part of this thing. This is my freaking podcast, dude. It's like, come on, man. More.
Well, we were talking about it yesterday. The downside of having, like, I have my home service happy hour podcast.
Yeah.
And the downside of having somebody else that has a podcast on your show is you hardly get to host because you have another host that you're talking to. And when you're talking to a show host, it's hard to get them to shut up.
It's perfect to me because, oh, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because it's hard to get me to shut up.
Well, I'm interviewing you. That's what this is cool. I can just chill and you do 95% of the talking and it's all gold. People hear me talking on the podcast all the time.
Yeah, no, it's fresh.
The Home Service Happy Hour podcast, and your new bookkeeping agency is
bestdanbookkeeping.com. Or it could be bestdanbookkeeping.com. I own that domain too, just because somebody's gonna hear it and be like, is it this or is it that?
Yeah.
And it's just easier for me to be like, yes.
DAMN, bestdanbookkeeping.com or bestdanbookkeeping.com.
It'll all get you there.
So if you need the books done, can you say it real quick, like what is that you do for people?
I keep their QuickBooks organized, up to date on a weekly basis, reported out monthly so that they have a scoreboard to look at that makes sense because, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but just the Cliff Notes version is like, if you're running a business, you signed up to play a math game. I don't care if you like math or not. Every decision that you make is based on dollars. And I'm not for a finance guy, I'm really not motivated by money. I'm just motivated by the opportunity to work with cool business owners and help them out. Some dollars will flow through. But if you're running a business, the scoreboard is made with dollars and percentages. But you got to know the score. You're in the business of making decisions. I don't care if you mow lawns. I don't care if you wash windows. I don't care if you're sealing blacktop driveways. Every single decision you make is a monetary one, and you're making investments, and you need to know what the score is to know what decision to make. No different than if you're playing a ball game. So bookkeeping is your scoreboard so that you know how you're doing, what to do next, which gets us into the purgatories of scaling. Because if you're going to scale a business, you sure as hell better have a scoreboard and know what quarter you're in and what the next play call is. And so a lot of people start this is like actually my background, and a lot of people I talk to is regardless of the industry that they're in now, if they're in the home service industry, they probably started mowing lawns when they were in middle school or high school. Like, I think I don't care if you're running a lawn care business now or a landscaping business now. If you're cleaning windows now, you probably were mowing lawns in middle school and high school. Mm-hmm. If you're doing landscape lighting now, you probably were mowing lawns. If you're pressure washing, you probably were more. If you're a maid service, you probably were mowing lawns. It's just like the thing that we all started doing and like cut our teeth back.
I was out mowing lawns at 12, bro.
Hell yeah, same here. $20 a pop. I was getting my $20 bills. But all of a sudden, like in the storyline of the business we have now is it started as a thing like that. I mean, probably a little less juvenile than when we were mowing lawns in middle school, but it started as a similar thing. We probably weren't charging people enough, right? It was all based on us, and we were just hustling and grinding, trying to scrape together a few bucks when we started the thing. At some point, all of a sudden, we're like, oh, we got to start hiring people, right? Because I can't handle all this work. And so we just default to hiring technician help because I can't possibly do all the work that we have to do, right? And so we accidentally start scaling. And we see these people with their pictures of all their trucks and all their employees out in their parking lot, and we're like, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so we default into, well, I ought to grow this thing. Again, because if I'm this big and I'm making this amount of money, if I double, I'll be making twice as much money, right? And so we go down this path. The problem is when we first started, our job was a technician job. And we did a little bit of sales and a little bit of marketing, but we really didn't have to sell that hard because everything was a referral. And we really didn't have to do much marketing because there was enough word of mouth. And so the administrative like growth jobs in our business didn't require a whole lot. We were just a good technician. And so then we hire another technician and start getting help, and then we start trying to grow the business. And as we scale, our job changes drastically. Like for the dude running $1 million business, if he's a good technician, that is pretty much irrelevant. It used to really matter if he was a good technician, but if he's running $1 million business, it matters if he's a good marketer. It matters if he's a good leader, a good coach, maybe a good salesperson if he's still involved in that. But at $1 million, like he doesn't even need to know what happens in the field anymore. He in general, but so we get in this trap where we start out, we're small, we see other people doing big things, and we're like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And so all of a sudden we start going down this progression and we hit these purgatories. And I'd say the number one problem underlying all of this is just that it's unexpected, right? If we knew what was going to happen along this journey and we were prepared for it, and if we listened to this podcast and we said, Dan told me this was going to happen, there's a way lot different approach to how you problem solve it versus if you're blindsided by it and you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to lose a lot of sleep at night. You're going to bang your head against the wall. You're probably your marriage or your relationships are going to suffer because you're going to be stressed out like crazy. If you knew it was going to happen, like a lot of the stress goes out the door, right? Then you just get to solving the problem. It's the unknown that we're scared of, and that sucks. Like, oh my God, I didn't realize this was going to happen. Am I a bad operator, right? Am I a shitty business owner? We kind of get in our own heads. So first, and I'll talk about this progression. I feel like I'm teasing it, but I'm not talking about it yet. But there's pros and cons both to being small and to being big. And so I want to hit on those because if you're still out in the field, if it's like you and maybe a helper, you don't have to scale. That is not the right answer for everybody. That is not the right set of problems for everybody. For some people, it sure is. And maybe right now it's not the right set of problems for you, but in 5 years, that is going to be the right set of problems. Maybe in 5 years, you've already solved all the problems and you're like, I'm good here, but I'm bored and I want a new challenge and I want the pride of overcoming hard stuff. You might decide to scale in 5 years, but maybe you stay small for now. Or you might scale and go like, no, that sucked. I want to stay small. There's no right or wrong answer with where you're at. Staying small is better for some people. Scaling is better for some people. No right answer. And that answer can change. Like if you decide one or the other today, it's okay to change your mind tomorrow, right? You're an entrepreneur. That's what you get to do. It's your business. You get to decide. Here's some pros and cons that I see. I'll start with the small company. When you're small, you get to control everything, man. Anything that happens, it's up to you, which is kind of cool, right? Like you have your fingers on the pulse of everything. And if something starts to go sideways, you can fix it really fast because you're there, right? It's super simple to manage. You can pretty much run it out of your bank account. Like you can look at your business bank account and know if you're winning or losing. It's pretty simple to tell what's working and what's not working at that point. The customer relationships are easy because it's you. Like they're there for you, right? The problem solving is easy because you don't have a ton of marketing, right? Referrals and word of mouth are usually enough early on, and maybe you dabble with a little bit of Google or a little bit of ad spend. You have a website so people can find you, but you don't have to blow a lot on marketing to be full at that level. You don't really need infrastructure. You generally can run it out of your house. So that saves you thousands of dollars on those sorts of bills and the simplicity of not having to maintain a location. And so as you're spending money and making investments, like your spend on that infrastructure is really small. So it's easy to be profitable when you're small. You can make a lot of money. If you're doing $250,000 in revenue as a small business, you can probably make $100,000 in different industries. Pretty darn easy. The risk is the cons of being small are if you get hurt, you're fucked. I'll pause after I say that. There needs some, like, you're fucked. The business is totally dependent on you. What's the mechanism to make money? Nobody else can go make money if you're not out there making money. So you better have really good disability insurance if it's just you or you and a helper. Because if you get hurt, your business is toast, right? It cannot make money without you. If you take a vacation, your business stops making money. You still probably even have a couple bills. So actually your business is losing money every time you leave, right? Because you're the hamster on the wheel. And so, again, it's not the end of the world, but that's the trade-off that you're taking is this business can't make any money without you. If you get hurt, you're in a lot of trouble. The other downside is, like, nobody can make decisions without you, right? Nothing can happen at the business without you. You're the only one that's in a position to make any decisions. And my wife and I talk about this all the time, just decision fatigue and like mental capacity. Like, even if it's small, like, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? It's like, I don't want to have to make another decision, right? Just you want to save your decision-making power for bigger decisions. And if you have to make all these small little decisions, it just eats up your mental load, your capacity to make more decisions. And so when you're a small business owner, like, all of a sudden it's dinner time and you're just like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to pick something up on the way home, right? I don't even have the decision-making power to think about what I would make and what ingredients I would need and any of that stuff because my decision-making capacity is toast because I've been making small little decisions all day because there's nobody else that can make them, right? So that's the kind of trade-off of running a small business. It's simple. It can be really profitable. You can make good money doing it, but it's really risky. Now, that's not to say don't do it. If you're going to do it, just make sure you have really good disability insurance so that if you do get hurt, you're not screwed. Your family's not screwed. That doesn't mean that scaling a business is all upside. Scaling a business has a massive list of pros and cons, and probably wouldn't surprise you that they're kind of the exact opposite of being small. That's like whatever is a con of being...
Real quick, I just want to insert one thing.
Yeah.
This was 2 springs ago. I had the guys going to show up at, 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m., and I had a dump trailer loaded with heavy logs from this tree job. Because I did a tree job with my friend William the day before. We'll team up and do tree jobs. He's the tree master, bro. Mm-hmm. So I got all the logs in my trailer. And I'm running out the door real quick, running on no sleep. We're swamped. And I look down at my nice steel toe work boots, and I go, fuck that. And I just put on my tennis shoes. I'm like, I'll put them on when I get back. And I go to the dump. I pride myself on being very careful. Mm-hmm. So I go to the dump. I'm a little anxiety, and I open up my dump trailer doors, and the logs, just from the gravity, just fell out. Ugh. And the log fell right on my foot, on the arch of my foot, bro. Like 35 pounds. Luckily, it wasn't heavier. And I felt a zing go straight up my leg, up into my spine, like it snapped a bone. Yeah. So, bro, I'm limping, and I call my chiropractor. It's a secret. I was like, dude, a chiropractor, please. And I go there real quick, and he has this tuning fork, and he puts it on my foot, and he's putting it in different places. And I'm like, dude, tell me my foot's broke. He goes, no, it's not broken. You're lucky. I go, how do you know? He's like, lucky. If it was broken, you'd be jumping up out of your seat screaming right now with the vibration. So
really? Interesting.
So anyways, It wasn't broken. It was bruised, and I was limping around for a couple days.
I bet that bruise hurt like a son of a gun.
Yeah, and it scared me, and I said, oh my gosh, if I broke my foot right now and I can't, climb the trees and climb the ladders to trim the trees and do the gutters and stuff that I don't want my guys doing because what our workers' comp can cover and not cover.
Yep.
Some of the little stuff that we do that's like here and there, I do that part.
Yep.
So think about that. If you're by yourself, you're going to have one helper, and then you break your foot.
Yeah, it's just scary, man.
You can literally end up losing your house because you broke your foot.
Yeah.
Or you better figure out real quick how to get the right people in place. My friend Scotty broke his hand. I was actually with him, bro, and like in 2 different places, and it put his back against the wall and forced him to scale his business.
Yep.
Because his hand was broken, and it was like a blessing in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying go break your hand, bro. But
yeah, my buddy Sid Graff. I think you know Sid, right? We were talking about Sid the other day. So he has a window cleaning business out in Missoula, and for a long time he was the window wizard, man. Guy was a window cleaning machine, and I'll probably get it wrong, but I think it was when he like turned 50, he realized he's like, oh crap, like I make enough year to year to support me that year, but I just have a job. Like, I don't have a scalable business, and so I'm 50. I can't keep cleaning windows forever. Maybe I got like 5 more years left in me. I better figure out how to scale this business pretty soon, because otherwise I'm going to go out of business and I got nothing, right? I got nothing to fall back on. It's just me going out and doing the work, right? And so whether it's an injury or for Sid, it was like an age thing where he was just like, I just can't keep doing this. Like, it's going to burn me down, like physically I won't be capable of doing it. And so sometimes we get pushed into scaling just for that reason. So maybe you're young, right? If you're listening to this and you're young and you're like, I don't want all the problems of scaling, which I might get to some of those. There's nothing wrong with staying small, but for sure, protect your risk, good disability insurance or something like that. And don't spend all that money just because you made it right now. Like stash. Put it in a 401k. Put it in an IRA.
I got a SEP IRA.
Yeah, it's like stash that money aside.
We had some pretty big expenses just over the past month, and I go and I log into my IRA to do my monthly deposit, and I was like, I'll skip that. You better hustle. Put that money in that IRA, because 10, 15, 20 years from now, you're going to look back and say, I'm glad I didn't skip all those months.
Yep.
I had to skip any months,
Yep.
But it's like,
future Keith's going to need that. Future Keith's going to want to do cool stuff too. Oh, yeah. Future Keith.
Keep going.
So it's not, there's great things about staying small. There's shitty things about staying small. There's the inverses of those are what applies to a scaled business. When you're scaling on the positives, yeah, it can make more money for sure, right? If you can bring in more revenue and manage it correctly, a scaled business can make as much money as you want it to make, right? If it's just you and you're small, there's a ceiling on how much money you make. Like, you can literally only make so much money because there's so many hours in a day. When you scale a business, that ceiling is gone. That business could make $100 million. Why not, right? Just keep growing it and keep growing it and growing it. The ceiling is removed, so you can make tons of money. You don't have to make all the decisions. In a scaled business, you're hiring people that can go out and do the work, that can make those decisions. I'm not saying they're going to make them right every time, but it takes a lot of the load off of you. It gives you a buffer, right? It gives you a buffer to the point where the business can be making money without you, right? I'm here right now talking to you. I am not doing any bookkeeping right now. And I have a pretty new business, but my guy Jason is doing work for our clients right now, and we are still making money right now. And it's a brand new business. I just knew, I was like, I'm going to grow this business. I like the problems of scaling a company. I don't want to grow a business that's totally dependent on me. I want to be able to go hang out with Keith and make some content and keep growing the business while we're doing a good job for people. So even though it's a brand new business I started up, like, I made the decision right away. I want to scale this thing. I'm going to go get the help that I need. And part of it's figuring out which help you need in which order. Do you need admin help? Which, like, that's my next hire, is an admin person, because I doing the invoicing and the workflow planning and stuff like that. I suck at that. We talked about that yesterday. Systems and processes, man. They eat me alive. I like chaos and problem solving. I don't want systems and processes. But so as you scale the business, it's de-risked. it can make money without you. You can be on vacation with your family. You can be here hanging out with Keith. You can do other things, and the business can still move forward, right? The downside is, just like it can make more money and it can make money without you.
If you are looking for the greatest software ever to run your business on, go to getjobber.com/Keith. You can create proposals, invoices, collect payments, and track your entire business directly on the Jobber smartphone app. If you want to get a totally free trial of Jobber right now, open your browser, type in getjobber.com/Keith, and after the trial, if you decide to sign up with Keith's link, you'll automatically get 20% off your first 6 months. So what are you waiting for? Go to getjobber.com/Keith.
Well, if it's not doing well, it can lose more money, and it can lose money without you, right? Like, if you're not there and you're out doing whatever you're doing, like, it can lose money really fast because it's paying a bunch of people that are making decisions, and if they're not trained well and don't have good systems and processes, they might not know that they're making crappy decisions and losing your money, right? And it's easy to spend somebody else's money. If you have a bunch of employees, they can steal from you. We just had to fire a person in our Minneapolis business. We figured it was about $2,800 they scraped off of us, and that's not the first time it's happened to us. So we got to work on building systems and processes to alleviate it, but there's plenty of problems that go along with a scaled business. It's a challenge, right? The job that you had when you started is not the job you have when you scale a business. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday too, talking about being a CEO. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be a CEO. That's super boring. Like, I like being a CFO and a finance dude and kind of a salesperson. I don't like being the CEO. That's like bureaucratic stuff. That's lawyery stuff. That's a bunch of documents and systems and process stuff that I don't want to do. Not to say that I can't scale a business, but there will be a point where I hire an integrator to be CEO, and I'll play visionary, when we talk, if we're talking the EOS business model. But if you're going to scale that business, like, you're going to have a different job than being just a technician. And that's cool, but are you good at being a leader? Are you good at building a culture and systems and processes? Is that a job you even want? Or do you like being out in the field?
Dude, I just had a quick epiphany. I'm listening to everything you're saying.
Yeah.
And part of my ego said, man, we talk about business stuff constantly on this podcast. And I was like, that's because I haven't figured the shit out yet myself, and I don't have the freedom in my own life. And anybody listening right now who's like, man, I just want to turn this off and turn on some music. Do you have the fucking freedom that you want in your life yet? This is the shit you're talking about right now that creates the freedom that we say that we want. And it's been figured out. And you're talking about it. So if we integrate this 3, 4, 5 years from now, you can actually be on a vacation with your family in that place, and you look at your phone, it's all handled because you have the people in place, and deposits are going into the account, and you're relaxed because you have the right people in place.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the right people.
And we'll get to how to find the right people later, but that's the big thing is, like, how do you know if they're the right people? How do you help lead them? How do you coach them? How do you train them? That's super hard stuff. That's harder than going out and mowing the lawn, right? People are challenging. So that's the hard part about scaling business. And again,
these are learnable skills.
They're learnable skills, but they're not right for everybody, right? You can learn how to parent. That doesn't mean you should have kids, right? Like, scaling a business isn't right for everybody, and it might not be right for somebody now, but it might be right for them in the future. Just like having kids, right? It might not be the time in your life that you should have kids, but maybe someday it's the right thing for you. Just because it's not right now doesn't mean it's not later. But it's and just like having kids, having a scaled business is super wonderful and great. And it also has a lot of shitty times, right? And diaper changing moments. And so it's like the both are so comparable. They're so rewarding, and they're so ridiculously challenging. That's fine. Like, we like challenges. We like problems. But you got to make sure you're in the right spot to deal with those problems, and that they're the set of problems you want for that time in your life. Because a scaled business has an overwhelming amount of problems. And for a while, like, it's on you still. right? Like, and I'll start.
I just pictured you could sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner in total peace with your wife, happy because your business is scaled and you're eating steak. And you could also be sitting at the kitchen table with bags under your eyes, stressed out, ain't slept in 3 days because you got a huge problem in your business and it's losing money quick, and you got to fix that thing, and you don't have no peace.
Mm-hmm.
So
the
high highs and low lows.
When it's just you or you and a helper, right? And your biggest fear, the thing that keeps you up, is the injury thing, right? Or a disappointed customer. When you have a scaled business, 3 employees quit on you in a day. And then you're like, well, now what? We have all these customers on the schedule. We have all this work to do. Do I go out and do it? How fast can I hire people and train people?
Because if you go out and do that, then you just stretch yourself way too thin real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, so I imagine like there's holes in a bucket. Instead of clogging the hole, you're going and you're putting your own arms and legs in the hole.
That's exactly what happens. And that's why having $1 million business kind of sucks, is because you're still plugging a lot of holes. Like, you're still the number one drain plug. So,
whoa. Okay.
But so we'll start going through some of the purgatories. Again, I'm not saying don't scale, it sucks. And I'm not saying scale because it's amazing. I'm saying each has trade-offs, and there's sweet spots in between too, right? And so sometimes you might be scaling and get to a sweet spot, and maybe you hang out there for a few years, right? Like, there's going to be times where you like find a spot where you're just in the flow. And maybe the right answer isn't to push like crazy and try to grow from 500,000 to $1 million. Like, maybe hanging out at 500,000 and running that business for a while and getting those set of problems under control is a good thing. There's no like, nobody judging. There's no right answer. There's no like, oh, Keith, you didn't grow it to $1 million. I guess you're going to hell, man. Right? Like, it's just, what's your definition of success? Well, it's freedom. It's having fun in your business. It's enjoying it, because if you're not enjoying it, like, go get a job. If you don't enjoy running the business that you have, go get a job. You can go get a job. Do you want one, though? Or do you want to, like, get your business into a spot where it's a hell of a lot of fun to run, right?
Having a job, to me, that's not even an option.
Right? So like,
I mean,
make
if I
the business what you want it to
of course I would, but it's not. What I mean is, like, if it wasn't an option, of course I would.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an option to not have a job. It's just not a fucking option, dude.
Yeah.
I literally can't even, like, unless people are, doing just crushing it, have very, very good jobs. And there are people who have good, dude, unbelievable jobs, man.
There's some great jobs out there.
Absolutely.
They're just not for me.
I could not stand reporting to work and somebody tell me when I got to be to work and when I can take a day off, and I got to put in a fucking request to take a day off. But I understand it because it's a system. There's other people, and you're part of a team.
Well, and that's why I think it's funny, us as like visionaries, I'm like, I know I need systems and processes to build this thing. But I don't want to follow them. Like, I don't want to have to put in, I know that I need to have a system where my employees can log hours and put in vacation requests and accrue time off. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to do whatever I want to do today to grow my business. So it's one of those things where it's like you in a funny way, you have to grow something where you can honestly say, like, here's all the rules I need you guys to abide by, and do as I say, not as I do. Because I can't possibly be held to these standards that I have set for all of you. It's a super funny thing. It's not forever, right? But there's like a period in your business where you have to like find a way to be able to do that. I've said many a time to many an employee something similar to that, but I've also said all decisions are final until tomorrow.
Wow.
Like, here's the decision we made. Here's what we're going to do. And I don't know that this is the right decision, but, I'm the CEO, and so I got to make these decisions, and we can't just sit here and not make a decision. So here's what we're going to do about this bonus program, about this customer, about this recruiting thing, whatever it is. Here's the decision. All decisions are final until tomorrow. Because I might change my mind. You might find something else that we don't know right now. We might get some feedback from somebody else that this was a shitty decision, right? part of the value of being a small business is we get to be super nimble. So all decisions are final until tomorrow.
Dude, I have to insert one more thing. Recently, I've gone through a rebrand in my whole online business. Basically, the colors, fonts, the entire look, and the consistency of messaging, the consistency of visuals, everything is. And I've hired a Chris Beltran. He's a brand transformation expert. He takes your brand from generic to iconic. And bro, I'm super happy with what's going on in my media business. But anyways, I used to be like, how do I make everything consistent? It feels like so much work to keep track of these things, these systems. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand the true meaning of a system. I guess you grow a little, you walk a mile, see a mile. But then when I finally got what's called a brand style guide, this is a system that I can just look at and refer to see what color of green this is, what color of gold this is, what color.
Yeah.
And that's just like in one small tiny aspect example. But when you have like an operating system, a marketing system, an administrative system, a phone script in selling and how you communicate with customers and process quotes and invoices and follow-up systems, very simple systems, minimum viable systems, then you don't feel overwhelmed like you have to like do this thing all the time as far as like remember all this. Oh, I forgot. Oh, my God. Yep. You just go look very simply. You either open up your CRM or wherever it is on the cloud, and you just open that up. What's the systems for this? And you just relax and you just like follow color by numbers.
Yeah. Follow your breadcrumbs that you laid down for yourself the last time you were there.
Yeah, it's just 4 simple steps, and you can improve and tweak the system. You say, oh, this is simple, and then you can hand that off to someone else. You just do these 4 or 6 things, and now I've totally relaxed because I don't have to keep it in my mental and emotional bandwidth anymore. I can just relax and just look at the fucking system and go, oh, okay, I just do this, and the system has proved I will get this predictable result.
Yep.
Okay, this is easy. Why didn't I see it before? I was doing all the heavy lifting. You don't, and I learned, wait, I don't need to do the heavy lifting. I could just relax and do my thing. And I have a calendar system. I have a weekly pulse meeting. I have it's a system that I just relax and refer to. I don't know. I have no idea. I just look at what the system says. Like kind of like one of those things.
Yep.
I'm kind of beating a dead horse because this is such a big epiphany for me that's allowed me to relax, and it's the lever where I can pull it with my pinky finger and get these predictable, awesome results with almost no effort, very little effort.
And it starts to take away some of the decision fatigue because all of that stuff was like
decision fatigue.
You had to make all those little tiny decisions, and they weren't big, but you would have sat there and you've got enough OCD in you. You would have sat there and stared at 20 different shades of green if you didn't have that. That in front of you.
We were at the Equip Expo last week in Louisville, Kentucky, and I saw Marvin Joles from Blacktop Banter. He's pretty cool. He was on the podcast. And I said, we were talking about marketing stuff, and we both have a podcast. And I showed him, I'm like, dude, I got to show. I was so excited because when you're around people who understand your language, it's exciting. And I showed him this system I created just inside of my phone. Every single time a video or a picture or any graphic is in my phone, I also have all this duplicated on the cloud. I have created albums inside of my phone. Do this for your marketing. For each type of whatever it's a brand deal we're working with, or if it's a certain type of like out in the field, or if it's just Keith or it's family or my dogs, or like I've created an album. And then not only does it autocorrect find it, but I also manually go in and I. So imagine if you're trying to make a post on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or
it's all right at your fingertips.
You're scrolling through all your fucking pictures to I don't have time for this. No. I just go to the album of whatever.
Dude, I need to do that. I got so much shit on my phone.
I also have something on my KK branded assets. So all of my branded assets that I need are in an album in my phone. And then I just go find that. And I have like my free PDF downloads, like keithkelfs.com/4 steps to training employees /4 steps. Or if you want to get how we budget, keithkelfs.com/budget.
Yeah.
And so all these branded assets are in one. So anything that I need, I just go to the album. They're right there, and I can grab it. And I'm showing this to Marvin, and Marvin goes, oh, my God, that's genius. I need to do that immediately. I've been doing it, scrolling and scrolling.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that 5 years ago? So what happens if you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear and these type of books, and Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and then Greg McKeown just wrote another book kind of like Essentialism. When you finally start having systems thinking, it starts lights. Your brain starts lighting up in all these other ways.
It starts connecting the dots,
and it goes up like a hockey stick.
Yeah.
And now you start systematizing all types of different little things. All right, I'm taking this in a totally different digressing section.
But I think that sort of stuff is shit you need to do to be able to scale something, right? If you don't do that, it's hard for you to hire people, turn stuff over to them. And so
Brandon Vaughn told me he was making the most money in his super scaled window cleaning, soft washing, pressure washing business with all his employees when he was just in the office on his laptop with spreadsheets making Google Docs, making a bunch of nerdy little systems. Like when he got to the point where he was the systems guy, where he was creating processes and systems for his team.
I mean, that dude's like the king of processes and systems too. He's as good as it gets.
He wasn't out there fighting the fires anymore. He was creating the systems.
Yep.
I was like, that's so weird. Imagine if you could get to a place where you're like the wizard behind the curtain, like the Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Well, and like I said earlier, I hate building systems and processes. Like, that's disgusting to me. But it's super, super, super important. So somebody's got to be building systems and processes.
So you can have somebody who does that for you.
Right? Like, that's the integrator's
visionary.
That's the integrator's job. So you don't need to be, that's like a CEO integrator. And the CEO can be a visionary, the CEO can be an integrator, but that's a job you can hire out when you can afford to, right? It's expensive. You got to find the right person for sure, but that doesn't have to be you. Heck, you can still be a technician in your business and hire everything else out. There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's just which job do you want to have and which set of problems do you want to have. So again, like just back to the, do you want to stay small? Do you want to scale? There's pros and cons to each one. If you're going to scale, there's things that work that have been proven, that have been done before, but there's no correct recipe, right? Like there's a whole lot of different ways to get it done and a whole lot of different business models to get it done. And so part of the fun of it is figuring out which one you like and which role you want to have. I know I don't want to be, like right now in my business, I'm the dude that's got to build the systems and processes for sure. But they're not going to be the systems and processes forever, and I'm not going to be the system and process builder forever. I don't enjoy that stuff. I do enjoy making podcasts, making content, doing sales stuff, talking to business owners, playing CFO, building budgets. Cool. I love all that stuff. But building systems and processes and training stuff is not my jam. So let's go through. First, I have like a rhetorical question, but you can answer it. And then we're going to get into the stages of the purgatories and how to work through them and scale a business if you're into that sort of thing. So here's my rhetorical question that can or cannot be answered. What's the first thing that happens when you start scaling a business?
Wow. I don't know. What is it?
You lose a bunch of money. A bunch of money. And that's the thing that people just go like, wait, I thought I was going to double and make twice as much money. But the first thing that happens when you start scaling a business is your cash flow goes way down. You start having to spend money on marketing. You start having to pay other people to do the work that you might not have been taking a paycheck. It might have looked like, air quotes, profit to you, but it was your paycheck. Like the net income of the business when it was just you, that's your paycheck. When you start hiring other people, they get that paycheck. They're the ones doing the work. You don't get that money. They get it. You have to pay the employees. So you're paying them. You're spending money on marketing because now you got to make sure they have enough work to do. You might start renting a location because you don't want them coming to your house as you start scaling a business. That's expensive, and you can't really like raise your prices and tell your customers, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm raising my price because I got to rent a bigger location. Like,
yeah, your wife's out trying to get a suntan, and then you got grown ass men showing up. To pick up tools and shit.
Yep, Keith, you got to go rent. You got to go rent something. But so all of that infrastructure starts to fall into place. Now you're spending more money on marketing, so you got more leads, so you need help answering the phone. All of a sudden, you need all this infrastructure. It doesn't generate a return right away. And again, you've got these employees that you need to pay that are doing the work. So now you have a different job. Your job is kind of like ops manager, general manager, salesperson. You need to grow this business to be able to afford all this stuff that you just put in place to scale. That doesn't happen overnight. So there's a stretch of time where you're going to go backwards. And that is where people are surprised and aren't prepared for that. And so they get there and they go, this sucks. I'm working twice as hard, right? Now, like, I still have to save the day every single day. I still have to make all the decisions. Now I also have to, like, babysit these two clowns that I didn't train properly, so they're doing a shitty job, right? That, like, we've all been there and hired those guys that don't show up every day, and you're trying to chase them down, and then they do a crappy job. Sometimes we get really lucky with our first hire or two, but sometimes we totally botch it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And you're paying for all this infrastructure stuff, and so you got all these bills, all these problems, more customers, more angry customers because those two dudes that you hired didn't do a great job, and you're wondering if they're showing up today or not, and you're losing sleep because if they don't, then you got to go out in the field, but you were going to work on this thing, and you had this other bid you were going to do today and all this stuff, right? So now you have more problems, and you're making less money.
Bro, I sent my guys last fall to do a sod job, and I inspect what I expect. And I make sure they send me pictures, and they normally do great work. I don't know what they were thinking, bro. It looked like they didn't grade it properly, and it looked like a big boob. Like, and there was two of them, so it just looked weird, bro. So it's like to
the point where you're like, did you guys do that on purpose to be funny, or did you do that bad of a job?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have been able to sleep. I said, rip it all up and redo it all. Even the customer was like, no, it's fine. I'm like, nope, that's not up to my standards, bro. So I had him rip it all up and redo it and regrade the shit and fix it.
Yeah.
And I think I made like $70 off a multi-$1,000. I didn't even give a fuck. I just wanted it to be right.
Yep.
And I didn't care and they made that shit right. And anyways, so yeah.
We had a similar one. And again, $1 million business is not immune from this. My partner in Minneapolis, Andy, he had 3 guys go out to gutter clean a property management job, 250 units, with like one of our really good property management partners, 250 units. He talked to these guys in the morning and said, hey, whatever you do, don't blow out the gutters if they're wet. Do it by hand. Like, very clearly made that point to them. Do not blow the gutters out. If they're wet, you need to do it by hand.
Did he say why?
I don't know if he did or not. I wasn't there. But it was this was I think it was like a $4,000 job, 3 dudes, and they get commission on it. They get 23% commission. So they were going to make bank. They were all going to make like a couple $100 that day. They were done with that job by 11 o'clock in the morning. There's no way that they did them by hand, right? There's no way. Now, the gutters weren't super filthy yet either, but the pictures started rolling in around noon, and when Andy sent them to me, I thought there was like a bug infestation on the siding because it had all these little like black dots all over it. No, that was just the mud and the tiny little leaves sprayed on the siding. Like,
all over the place.
All over the place, and they left. They left that job. I don't know.
And you can't just blow it off with a backpack blower or something. You have to go take water and rinse all that shit down.
Guess what?
And clean up your mess.
Where are you going to get water from? All their water shut off. Andy was out there with his brother with microfiber towels, wiping down all the siding after dark going out there. $1 million business. Still dealing with stuff like that.
Oh,
right?
My God.
So now it's a solvable problem, right? But it's just one of those things. Like, that is a thing that happens when you scale a business. Now we'll move on.
We did that shit last fall, bro. I have a customer. Every single fall we come and we do all the windows and do all the gutter cleaning. Same thing every time. We blow out all the gutters with a backpack blower, and then we water fed pull all the windows, get in and out, boom, boom. This time, I had never done it when it had rained and these gutters were packed. And I didn't know. I'm like, why does everything look so clean? 4 days before, she just got all the gutters and soffits and everything painted pure white. And the painter she didn't call me to clean the gutters out before. And the gutters were packed and they just painted. And just like by habit, we do this every year. I just run around with the backpack blower and blew out all the gutters like an asshole. Bro. Dude, she came out furious. There was there was muddy streaks going down the brand new white gutters and on the soffits and fucking shit blowing all over the place. And I was like, and then I realized what I did. I go, oh shit. So we had to re-rinse everything and re-clean it, wipe down with microfiber towels. We were there for an extra 2 whole hours and had to water fed pull all the windows and wipe down everything.
Yep.
We got it looking very, very clean. And I was
but
like,
at least
I should have
did it by hand. At least you stayed there and fixed it.
Oh, I fixed that shit and I learned my lesson.
The fact that those dudes left that job, like, I don't know if they just did the whole thing with their eyes closed, if they were, or if they were just like, well, the gutters are empty. You know, it's like, what were they thinking? But anyway, so point being is like the problems don't go away as you scale. They're different, and I mentioned we had somebody steal from us. Well, it was our general manager that stole from us. So normally it would be the general manager's problem to solve, but they aren't with us anymore, and so it became Andy's problem to solve. Right? So he was the one that was out in the field dealing with it. So anyway, as you're scaling and you're going through these purgatories, that's kind of number one. Is you've got a couple employees now, and you have twice as many problems, and there's less money to go around, because you're paying them to do the work, and your job between sales and operations manager and office manager, that job doesn't pay very much. There's not a lot of money left for that job. And so that's the thing that usually like catches people really off guard as they start trying to scale. Their brain is telling them, hey, I did $200,000 in revenue last year with like me and a helper, and I made $100,000. If I get to $400,000 or $500,000, I'm going to be making like $200,000, $250,000. Simple math, right? I'm going to double. I'm going to make twice as much money. And it's somewhere along the curve to $300,000 where they've got these 2 people out in the field now, and then they're going and doing more sales stuff, and they have all the problems, and they're scaling, and they're spending more on marketing, and now they're renting a location. And so they're doing like $300,000 in sales, and they're making $0. I've seen them losing money instead of making money. Now, it's not forever, right? Because eventually you get the right people and you get them trained up. Eventually those marketing investments start paying off, right? They're all investments. When you get a return from them, or if you get a return from them, is the question. So at some point, those investments start paying off and you work your way through it. But when you're in that shit that everybody likes to skip over, that's the hardest time in any business. It's that first purgatory, because it's unexpected. The unknown scares the shit out of us. We thought we had it figured out. We thought we were just going to grow and make all this money, and we were making a lot of money. And so the worst is usually a lot of times we built a lifestyle based on making $100,000. And then we start growing our business and living our life with a $100,000 wage expectation, and now we're making $30,000. And we're like, uh-oh, where's all my money? And so a lot of times guys will bail out. They'll either get rid of their business, right, because they think they failed, or they'll fire everybody and jump back on the truck because these guys are idiots and nobody can do it as good as I can do, which isn't true, but that's what our ego tells us, is it's got to be us out there doing it because we can't hire anybody and nobody will do it as good as us. And that's just like a defense mechanism because we're afraid of this thing that just happened to us, right? We just got our teeth kicked in. Mm-hmm. But if you knew that was going to happen, then you'd be like, well, let's just start solving it. Like, I mean, again, like I'm growing this new bookkeeping business. I know that's going to happen. I already can see the first account manager that I hire, I'm going to go from making probably like personally $100,000 to $0. The first account manager I hire to replace me as an account manager, the first finance person, I'm going to go from making $100,000 to $0. But I know that it's going to happen. And that's a hell of a lot different than not knowing it's going to happen. Mostly because I can at least like brace my wife for it. And she'll be like, well, you're making good money. We should do this. We should go on this vacation. You should buy a new truck. I'll be like, no, because I'm about to lose it all, baby. But so it's just so different if you know it's going to happen. It sucks. It sucks if you get blindsided. It's different if you know it's going to happen.
He's about to lose it all.
I'm about to lose it. Like as if I'm going to Vegas.
What the fuck? Oh my God. Sorry. That was the funniest shit I ever heard, and I'm not exaggerating. I got to regain my composure. Tell his wife, we're doing great.
We're gonna lose it all. About to lose it all.
Keep going.
So, but again, like, it's so different if you know it's going to happen and you can start problem solving for it in advance, or you build it so that it can handle that in advance, right?
Looking to maximize your production in the field? Ballard Products has over 300 products that can help you get the most out of your efforts every day. Ballard Products. Whether you are looking to get a better cut, keep your gear on your machine, keep your expensive equipment clean and safe, or just get the most out of your machines, Ballard has you covered. Ballard Products. Jump onto our easy-to-use updated website at ballard-inc.com to get your gear ordered today. Keep grinding. Stay safe. And have a great season. Ballard. Make sure to use the code Keith10 to save 10% on our full line of gear. That's Keith10.
It's the unknown that sucks. So here's a few things to get through Purgatory 1, because it's going to happen. You're going to go through this like between 250. Now it's different dollar amounts for different industries. So don't get too hung up on where I say it's going to happen. And if you start addressing these problems sooner, you'll go through Purgatory probably at a lower dollar amount. But really the goal is like, how fast can you get through it? Because you can't hang out in a Purgatory. Like, you can't hang out at $1 million business, or you'll be Andy going out and, wiping siding off with microfiber towels. So usually this Purgatory happens around between 200 and 300,000, because you can do, in different industries, you can do around 200,000 with like you and a helper. And then you get in that mindset of, I'm going to double, I'm going to do 400,000, I'll make 200,000 bucks. Then you go through the shit. And usually when you come out of it, which you will, if you do these things, usually when you come out of it at like $400,000 or $500,000, you're like, oh, here we are. Like, you're not making 50% profit margin anymore. At this point, you listen to the podcast we did yesterday, and you're an S Corp, and you're taking a wage, and so now you're taking a wage of like 40, 50 grand, and you're taking distributions of maybe 40, 50 grand, and you're probably making the same $100,000 that you were when you were doing $200,000. But now all of a sudden, like, it's not just you, and you're not a slave to the field. And if you do get your foot hurt, the business can still keep making money, and you can probably hire somebody else to help answer the phones, right? So all of a sudden you start getting some insulation, and you get freedom. You probably are making the same amount of money at 400 to 500,000 that you were when you were doing 200,000. There's not a whole lot more money there. It all goes to different pieces of that business to support you, but you bought yourself a hell of a lot of freedom. Here's how you do it. I got bullet points, and I'm going to check them so that I don't miss any. Number one bullet point, and you elaborated on this one yesterday, which was helpful. You really got to dial in your cost of goods sold, your COGS, which is everything that it costs you to go out and produce the revenue. If you don't have that process dialed in, it's really hard to scale a business. If one time you go and do a job and you make 30% margin on it, and the next time you make 70%, and the next time you make 50%, if that's not like a repeatable number, it's really hard to know how much money are you going to have left at the end of the day to grow marketing, to hire an admin person. If you can't stabilize how much money you make and have a predictable amount of money you make when you go out to do work, it's really hard to scale that business, because you don't know how much money you're going to have left to invest in it. So cost of goods sold is the labor in the field. How are you paying them? If you can find a way to pay them like a commission or performance style pay, that helps a lot. But also just like matching how you charge customers with how you pay employees is super important, so that you de-risk yourself and it's predictable. Your fuel spend, right? A really tight route, not blowing money on inefficient driving all over town. And then supplies, tools, and equipment, not spending money on every other piece of equipment and every other toy for every other job. You got to manage that cost of goods sold really tight to make sure that in most of our industries, green industry specifically, you need about 50% of that money to come back to the business after it pays for everything to do the work. So if you book $1,000 job, it needs to cost you less than $500 to complete that work. Labor, materials, supplies, fuel.
Maybe a 50% gross profit margin.
Nailed it. Yep. You want around 50% gross profit margin. Now, when you're really small, you're going to be like, man, like, that's making too much money. But remember, like, you haven't spent anything on marketing yet. You haven't spent anything on the person to answer the phone yet. You haven't spent anything on your infrastructure yet. You haven't spent anything on recruiting yet or repairs and maintenance yet. So you need.
What's the max labor that should it be like? Can't go over 40% or something.
I like to have it in the low 30s.
Wow.
Fully loaded, low 30s. If it's higher than that, you're not charging enough. Is what it usually is.
Gosh.
So
you can get it down that low?
You can get it down that low. Now, it depends on the projects, and it depends on, like, if it's higher than that, there's a couple things going on. One is you're probably not charging enough. Two is your labor isn't efficient enough, which is why I like to pay per performance, so that if they're super efficient, they get the upside, but I can also pay a percentage. We pay 23%. It pretty much guarantees by the time you pay training pay, by the time you pay for inefficiency, by the time you pay for benefits and different things like that, it ends up in the low 30s, payroll taxes and stuff like that. But it guarantees that you're always in the low 30s, unless you have a bunch of turnover and a bunch of training pay or something like that. But if you're outside of the low 30s, all of a sudden the gross margin is eroded and there's not a lot of money left to invest in growing the business. Because this is just the cost to get it done. This doesn't help you grow the business at all. This is just the cost to go do Mrs. Jones's job that you already booked. You need to make sure there's enough money left afterward. And so usually when your cost of goods sold is off, it's I was going to say one of three things, but it's probably like a combination of these three things. You're not charging enough. You're not paying your employees the right way. You're paying them too much for their productivity. And you don't have the right systems and processes and efficiencies out in the field for them to be productive enough. And that might be a business problem, or you don't have the right employees problem, like they're just not productive enough. But it's one of those things that is causing that labor efficiency to not be enough to give you enough money as a business at the end of that job.
6 crews, and all 6 crews are stopping at 7-Eleven every morning to go get ho-hos, king dongs, and Twinkies, and cupcakes, and fucking
and you know what?
Coffee. And
if they do, cool. But if they were pay per performance paid,
they'd be moving quick. And
yeah, like they're not getting paid for being there. There's no revenue tied to that, so they can stay there as long as they want. They still got to go get that job done, and they only get paid for the revenue tied to that job that they got to go get done. So every dime of time they waste in between is just on them. It just eats away their paycheck. So it's like, which not to say
but
don't
part of
stop.
that deal is negotiated, and if you cut corners and we get a call back, you also got to go fix that.
You got to go fix it. Andy should have done that with those 3 guys that did a shitty job on that. I think he was just so disgusted with them. He was like, don't bother showing up tomorrow unless you're as embarrassed about this as I am. Like, you don't get the opportunity to come back and fix this. That's how bad you fucked up. Like, you don't even get the opportunity to go back to that property. I'm not letting you back there. You screwed it up that bad. Normally, you would send those guys back to fix it, and they're not making any more money. They got a percent of – he actually cut them to hourly for that job and was just like, hey, like, if you're going to do that, like, you don't get all the upside that you would have gotten by having a great, efficient job. But anyway, so number 1, dial in your cost of goods sold, making sure you have a system to make that repeatable. Number 2 is don't be afraid to hire some part-time administrative help. It kind of goes along with number 3, which is don't rush off the truck. When you're small, the highest paying job in your company is out in the field. It's not the person answering the phone. It's not the person doing the marketing stuff. It's not the person doing the sales stuff. That person, there's not enough of that to pay that person a lot. And what tends to happen is, and this is, again, like a fact of social media, is everybody wants to get off the truck because that's for technicians. I'm a business owner. I'm going to get off the truck. The problem is we demote ourselves to be an office manager. The office manager gets paid less than the technician does. And now we just took a lower paying job that's really a part-time job. It's not even a full-time job in this business. And we hired somebody and are paying them the highest paying job in our company, which is like the lead tech role. So hire a part-time. The other cool thing about the admin side is you can hire that part-time really easily. You can hire a VA. You could use a Jill's office. You can hire somebody locally. It's not hard to find somebody to answer the phones and do emails and run your CRM for 10 to 20 hours a week and pay them $15 to $20 an hour. There's a bunch of people qualified for that. Keith, if you wanted to hire that person, we could hire that person by the end of the day today. I bet we could hire somebody. One Facebook post and we'd find somebody that's looking for some part-time work from home in their jammies. They can do that. The technician is going to make more money than that. It's a more skilled position. It's a harder to find position. And yet so many business owners try to hire that out, and they get off the truck and they become the office manager because they think that's the path, right? But it's way easier to hire a part-time admin person. It's hard to hire a part-time person for the field. It's like it makes routing hard, it makes scheduling hard, it makes dependability hard. It's way it's way easier to hire a part-time person for the office, and it's way more scalable. Way more scalable. And then you're better in the field. That's the highest paying job. Why wouldn't you want the highest paying job in your company? Not to say stay in the field forever, but so many people rush to get off the truck and they take a lower paying job within their business, and then they wonder where all their money went. It's because you just hired two dudes for the highest paying jobs in your company, and you became the office manager, the lowest paying job in your company. Now, when we get to purgatory number 2, I'm going to say the office manager is the most important role in your company. That doesn't mean it's the highest paid job in your company. The market dictates what that job gets paid, and it's like a $15 to $20 an hour job a lot of cases. It's a super important role, but you can hire it for
I'd say with all the inflation now, it's probably...
Yeah, it's probably 20 plus.
It's been crazy the last couple of years.
But even so, like, you can hire somebody in the Philippines for $5 to $10 an hour to do that sort of stuff, because it doesn't need to be on location all the time, depending on what you have them doing. So anyway, hire part-time admin help. Don't rush to get off the truck. When you're going through that purgatory, staying on the truck helps make sure you're still making money so that you don't get totally blindsided by the cost of scaling.
Yeah.
Every, owner operator, I'm putting that in air quotes since yesterday I said don't say owner operator. You're an owner and an operator. But everybody that's in that seat loves to buy toys, man. Loves to buy trucks, loves to buy equipment. We love it. And it's like the worst thing we can do to scale our business.
So you could go buy your dream $100,000 2500 HD.
Yeah,
full
I made
with
it.
the leather.
I made it, bro. I bought it cash. And that happens. And it's,
but with that, you could probably go get like 4 technician trucks, or you upgrade a whole bunch of shit with that money.
Yeah. Trucks don't make you any money. Equipment doesn't make you any money. The dude on it does, and the customer does, but the equipment itself doesn't make you any money. So one of the problems is, and then we made a little clip last night, you and I, about like staying in your lane. Don't throw your fastball. Don't try to do every other service for every other person. And it kind of goes along with this, which is like, don't go buy a new piece of equipment for every oddball job. Unless you're going to like use that equipment every single day, don't go buy a new piece of equipment. Pass that lead off to somebody else, or subcontract that part of the job to somebody else. Don't go buy a new piece of equipment that you're going to use once or twice a month.
Making payments on a brand new $50,000 dingo you only use once every 3 weeks for 2 hours.
Or, yeah, that. Or I'll see people be like, oh, I got this $5,000 job, so I can afford this $3,000 piece of equipment.
No, I got my dingo and I use it every day. You got to buy one. Sorry, I just can hear him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But like, that cash could be so much better spent on marketing and recruiting to go grow our business. The equipment can't grow our business. Only the dude on the equipment and only the customer can grow our business. So the equipment becomes dead weight, and it's expensive stuff. And people try to justify it, and this is always a justification. This mathematically doesn't make sense. But people will be like, well, I got this $5,000 job. I just need this $3,000 piece of equipment. I know I'm going to use it again in the future, and it's already paid for, right? Well, a $5,000 job only makes you gross profit of $2,500. You don't make $5,000. You make $2,500 because you got to pay for all the stuff to actually go do the job. And of that $2,500, you still need to pay for your infrastructure, for your admin team, for your marketing, for your next job, for your recruiting, for your next person. Generally, like, the profit margin is 10 to 20%. A $5,000 job doesn't make you $5,000. It makes you $500, maybe $1,000. You didn't pay for that $3,000 piece of equipment. That just cost you a shitload of money, and you're down thousands of dollars now. Thousands of dollars you could have put into marketing or recruiting to actually go grow your business. Instead, you just spent a bunch of money on a piece of equipment that you're not going to use every day.
And to a couple narrow services that you expertise on, that you can crush over and over and over and over and over, super efficient, instead of doing when you talk, it makes my brain go into all these different little epiphanies.
You're going to the next one, though, which is keep throwing your fastball. Don't, when it's just you, Yeah, you can go solve all these problems for the homeowner, right? You could be doing their damn dishes if you wanted to, but you can't scale a business where you hire somebody and you're like, well, we do people's laundry, we clean their house, we clean their gutters, we pressure wash for them, we do their landscaping for them, and we also, tinker with their HVAC every once in a while. Like, could you do it? Probably. Are you going to be able to hire somebody and train them to do all that? Hell no. Like, you can't build systems and processes for that nonsense. Dude, that was my first couple years in business.
We were doing so much different shit. When I hired somebody, I could not leave the job site because I couldn't possibly train them how to do all this different shit we did.
Yep.
It's crazy.
So the minute you're going to, which again, like, if it's just you can do that. That's totally fine. Make sure you charge enough to make it worth your while. But if you're going to start scaling, you got to be like, here's the 2 or 3 things that we do, and we do them really well, and we do them over and over again, and I can build a system and a process and train somebody else to do that thing, so I don't need to be at every job.
Yeah.
So you got to throw your fastball, and by doing that, it also saves you from the, I got to go buy this $3,000 piece of equipment for this $5,000 job. That's not one of the 3 things that we do over and over and over again. Just makes it way easier to not be like attracted to that shiny object.
Wow.
So in order to start scaling, we got to be disciplined about that. And the last thing is, and this isn't a forever, this is like purgatory number 1. The longer, you could have told Ashley this when she was like, hey, there's people coming over and I'm trying to suntan. The longer you can delay infrastructure, the better. The longer you can wait to go rent the location. The longer you can wait to have this huge insurance bill or this huge software or whatever it is, these deadweight bills where you can't pass that cost along to the customer, the longer you can wait on that stuff, keep that money flowing into the business to spend it on marketing and recruiting. And I'll say that just over and over again, beating a dead horse, but marketing and recruiting are the 2 places you can put money to grow your business. Nowhere else. The equipment doesn't grow it. The infrastructure doesn't grow it. The people grow it. We are in the service industry. There's a reason why marketing and recruiting are the 2 things that can grow our business. We either need a customer or we need an employee. Or we need both. We probably already have one or the other.
More customers and more employees to service those customers.
Mm-hmm. The equipment can come after the fact. You could go sell a job and not have the equipment for it. Go sell it first. Then go get the equipment you need for it and train the employee how to do it. Right? But like you can, which like, again, don't go buy toys that don't go with what you need. But if you need another truck, go book your existing truck out 6 weeks and then go get your other truck. Like, already have all the work and the employees trained up to fill that asset up. The asset should be the last thing to come. And then don't buy it cash. Finance it. I'll get to this later, but finance it so that you can spend more on recruiting and marketing to keep growing. Because those are the 2 things that grow your business. The asset is like the 3rd thing. That comes after you have the customer and after you have the employee. So that's purgatory number 1. That's how you get through that 200, 250, 300,000 like revenue area where you're just like, I'm doing all this work. I got all these problems. I got these crews. I got, these expenses on marketing and infrastructure. And you start losing money. Everything we just documented there, that's how you fight your way through that first purgatory. And you're going to get out of that first purgatory around like 400 to 500,000 of annualized revenue. And like I said, it's like the clouds are going to open and your bank account's going to open. Because once you have some of that infrastructure stuff in place and you have somebody to help you answer the phones and stuff like that, once it's in place, it doesn't start costing you more when you go from like 300,000 to 400,000. You're spending the same amount on marketing when you're at 300,000 as you are at 400,000. You're spending the same amount on the phone person at 300,000, at 400,000. You're spending the same amount on your software from 300,000 to 400,000. So all of a sudden, as you get that next like 100 or 200,000 of revenue in there, you don't need more infrastructure. You already put it in place.
Wow, I'm picturing little cells inside of an ice cube tray. You get the little cell and you could, just a little bit of water, but you could fill that cell all the way up to the top with more. It'll hold like until it starts to spill over and require another cell to pour over into, like an ice cube tray in this,
yeah.
So you can, go over keep going over that. It's amazing.
So all of a sudden, like you tackled all of these expenses that come with that purgatory. And so as you start piling on more revenue on top of it and that marketing starts working and those yahoos that you hired for the field finally are like trained up and you don't have to go to every job anymore, eventually like more of that revenue flows to the bottom line and you're back to making $100,000, maybe even more than $100,000 personal income. And so it's like, oh,
because you got a lean, mean, money-making machine, bro.
Yeah,
it's a well-oiled machine at that level.
Yeah, and you've got
at that
help.
gear. So like a mountain bike, you're in like third gear now, going a little bit faster.
Ooh, I like the mountain bike. Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't switch to the next gear yet, motherfucker.
Not yet. You're on the 7 and the 1 maybe. You haven't gone to the 2 yet or the 3 yet. So maybe you're not in like 21st gear. Maybe you're still in like 7th gear. I don't know. I haven't biked in a long time. I think my hammies would blow, actually, based on how I'm feeling right now after running.
I got into mountain biking just around my neighborhood, not like in the mountains.
Yeah, road mountain biking.
Yeah, and then I got a mountain bike for my basement. What is it, an exercise bike?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw my iPad up so it looks like I'm biking through the mountains.
I like it.
Get my cardio in. All right, keep going.
Dude, I dig it, man. But yeah, so you hit like a sweet spot. You're in that 400 to 500,000 revenue range. And again, don't get hung up on the revenue numbers I'm using. I'm just saying, like, here's some general places this happens. Different industries, it happens at different levels, but the problems are the same and the solutions are the same. So you hit a sweet spot, and it's okay to, like, hang out there for a little bit. Like, in general, we all want to hit $1 million in revenue because it sounds super cool. And so I'm not saying, like, don't go for that and don't go beyond that. But, like, know that there's going to be a sweet spot before you get there where you're going to be like, I'm back. Life is good. And now I have, like, I'm maybe not making a lot more money than I was when it was like me and a helper, but I have more freedom. My people are useful. They can solve problems without me all of a sudden. They know enough, and so I'm making money, and I have some freedom and some insulation from some of the problems, right? And then we fall into the same trap that we did the first time we started trying to grow, which is we're like, okay, well, I'm doing 500,000 in revenue and I'm making like 125 grand. So I'll grow to $1 million and then I'll be making 250,000 bucks. Because if I double, then I'm going to double, right? No, because now you're going to start growing again and you're going to say, all right, let's put some more money to work, right? Now we've got this, and so now we're going to buy that shiny piece of equipment, or we've exhausted the marketing to get us to $500,000, so we got to go try this next thing. And so we start growing again. And now we're not out in the field much anymore because that business needs us selling like all the time to feed the beast. And so now we're trying to like train one of our technicians to be a manager or a leader of some sort. We don't really know because we haven't solved that problem yet. And so we start growing again, and we get to $600,000, and our cost of goods sold is all out of whack because the dude that we thought was going to be a good manager turned out he was just a really good technician. He's just super good as a technician, and all of the employees now hate him, and 3 just quit. And we have all this work on the schedule, and now we got to go hire a bunch of people and train a bunch of people, and training's really expensive. So that's going to happen. And, well, now we need an office person because we had this part-time person, but now we really need a full-time person because the phone's ringing off the hook, and that part-time person didn't want to go full-time, so now we got to hire somebody full-time. You see where this is going. All of the investments that we just made were great to get us from $300,000 to $500,000. But it's a whole new set of problems to get us from $500,000 to $800,000 or $900,000 to the next sweet spot. And as we're going through that, life sucks again. Because now we're trying to play general manager. We're trying to like start forming some sort of leadership and culture stuff. And again, probably a new set of problems we've never solved before. And so new problems require new solutions for us. There's plenty of people that have solved them before, but they're still hard for us the first time we do it, trying to figure out, do I need a general manager? Do I need just an office manager and I play general manager? Should I hire a salesperson? Like, who do you need? Right now, you're still filling all those roles. Maybe you're not the technician anymore. And so we go through purgatory number 2. And around 600,000-ish, somewhere in that range, life is miserable again. We usually don't go back to like making $0. There's still some money in there, but we discredit how expensive growth is. Even though we should remember from the first time we went through a purgatory that life is going to suck for a while. We like this is one of those things where I don't know if this is true at all, but I'm just going to use it as an example. So I'm prefacing it. But I'm going to say it's like when women get pregnant and deliver a baby, it's like a profound thing and super painful experience, right? But if they remembered how painful it was, they would never have another kid. So why the hell do I have 3 kids? Marty forgot how much it sucked having a baby, right? Because now she just gets to look at this cute little thing running around. But she forgot how ridiculously uncomfortable pregnancy is and how much it hurt having a baby. Business purgatory is kind of the same thing. No, it's not at all the same thing, but it's a metaphor. So it's not at all the same thing, but it's the same type of process. You get to, you're in this steady state and you got this cute little kid running around and you're like, let's have another one. And then you're like, oh shit, like I forgot how uncomfortable this is and now I got to have this baby. And then, I don't know, then we did it again for some reason and went for 3. But business is kind of the same way. It's like you forget how much it sucked going through that growth spurt. And because we all have short memories and we kind of remember, even Steve Rinella, who hosts the Meat Eater podcast, says it like this. There's those moments in our life that really suck, even when we're doing like fun things. And he calls them type 2 fun. Like type 1 fun is on a roller coaster when you're just like, woohoo. Type 2 fun is all the shitty stuff, but it's the stuff you reminisce about. And if you ever notice, like in your business, when you're reminiscing about it, at the time, it sucked. The 2 dudes that put the set of boobs in the people's yard and you had to go back and regrade everything, like you were not smiling when that happened.
No.
But you were smiling when you told me about it now.
Yeah.
It's type 2 fun. So like we forget how much it sucked. We know that it sucked, but when we reflect on it, we don't reflect on it negatively. We reflect on it laughing. It's funny, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
why do we do that? Why do we do that? I don't know, but because of that, we're like, let's do it again. So we enter into a new purgatory because we say, let's do it again. But now we have a whole new set of problems to solve. Now we got to like hire managers and train leaders. And we've never done that before. We've only done technicians. Now we need like training systems because we're not even going to be out in the field training the people anymore. Now our ops manager is going to be out in the field training people. And again, maybe that ops manager sucks at leading people and maybe they're not a really good leader or manager and then people quit and it gets really choppy. So purgatory number 2 is kind of in that $600,000 range. And it's just because all that happened is we encountered a brand new set of problems. It's not good or bad. It's just a brand new set of problems that we haven't solved before. So there's solutions to those problems. You want to hear them?
Yes.
All right. Kind of back to how we solved the first purgatory. I think in here, our cost of goods sold usually gets out of whack again because we maybe built a system that we could manage and maintain our cost of goods sold. Again, the labor to get the work done, the fuel and stuff like that to go get out there and run everything, and then the supplies, tools, equipment, material on the truck. So those 3 things make up our cost of goods sold. And we thought we had a system built, but now we just turned over that system to like an ops manager dude or a lead tech type of dude, and they might suck at running that system. Maybe we built it shitty, or maybe they're just not the right person for that role. But usually we need to like re-verify and tweak our processes and systems to manage those costs of goods sold so that somebody that we hired can actually run that system. So getting out of purgatory number 2 first starts with like making sure that's dialed in. Because again, all the other investments you need to make are dependent on you crushing cost of goods sold. If you don't nail that, there's no money left for you to invest in growth. And then you're stuck in that purgatory and you don't want to stay in that purgatory. You know, you got to get out of it. So number 1, confirm that your cost of goods sold is dialed in. Number 2, we'll talk about in a little bit here, is obsess about your recruiting processes, your hiring processes, your training processes. This is where you begin to realize, after you've hired so many shitty people to get you where you're at, that the most important thing in your business is having good employees. If you have good employees, your business is so easy to run. If the people you hired did exactly what they were supposed to do day in, day out, never had an issue, which is not reasonable, not going to happen, but the closer you can get to that, your business is not complicated. Your business is not that hard to run. Right? When your business sucks to run, it's because your team isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if you have a shitty team, your life really sucks.
Happy clients, happy employees.
Happy business owner.
Happy business owner.
But you won't have happy clients if you have shitty employees. Right?
But it all leads back to the leadership of the business.
All leads back to the leadership. That's why I said earlier, like, the first thing you got to go do is look in a mirror. Does anybody actually want to come work for you? Are you fun to work for? Are you motivating to work for? Are you exciting to work for? Or does somebody show up like dragging in, not pumped to come and see you for the day, right? Do they respect you? Do they want to follow you? Maybe. I don't know. Go look in a mirror. Find out, because if you can't say hell yeah to those questions, how the hell are you going to scale a business?
Jill's office provides friendly, professional receptionists for small business owners just like you. We can help answer your calls, and we can even schedule estimates and jobs for you. Try Jill's office today and get a $25 discount when you say Untrapped. Just go to jillsoffice.com.
You're asking a whole bunch of people to follow you to your promised land. Do you have a promised land and a vision that's worth following? Maybe, maybe not. So you need to get really good about the systems and the processes.
One quick thing is, if you're not super, super passionate about just landscaping, it's like, how am I going to grow a business that I'm not, and be that happy guy that people want to follow? Well, what if you love people so much, and you love that you're creating an environment where people can come to work and feed their families, and you watch all these amazing things, and you see presents under other people's trees and things like that, brings you so much fulfillment that not only maybe you feel like you have a duty and an obligation, but you have so much love in your heart, because if God gave you these skill sets to be an entrepreneur, you can create an environment where people can come to a great place to work. Like, there's all these other things that happen that are way beyond just landscaping or something.
Well, and that's why as you scale that business, your landscaping skills become irrelevant. You're not out there. Like, the bigger that your business gets, and it's why you see like corporate executives trade from industry to industry a lot of times. Like, people will come in to run a business. They'll be hired as a CEO in a business when they have no experience with what that business does. Computers, cars, whatever it is. But they have experience building leadership teams and building culture.
They know how to lead people.
Because it's not important that you build cars. Culture. It's not important that you do landscaping. It's not important what you do, right? It's just important how you do it.
That's
and how you motivate
people. Type shit. Bro.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the biggest level, like Coca-Cola, it's not even a soda pop company. They're a data company. Mm-hmm. They just happen to make soda pop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going off. So the Mars, keep going.
So obsessing about the people side of it, the recruiting, the hiring, the training. One thing that happens here in the second purgatory around the $600,000 level is whatever you were doing for marketing is usually kind of exhausted at this point. Like, if you're just building that business on like flyers and yard signs, you hit a point of diminishing returns, meaning like you've hit every not to say stop doing it, but that thing alone can't keep growing your business. So you need to find different marketing alternatives that are going to work, whether it's you're running more Google ads, whether you're doing YouTube ads or Facebook ads or maybe radio ads or billboards or whatever. You've got to start figuring out like what works the best for your marketing. And so I wouldn't say like start blowing money on R&D, like research and development marketing. Like, don't blow money like you're gambling. That's to get out of the next purgatory you do. But in this purgatory, I would just say measure it like crazy. Know what your acquisition cost is. Know how much you're spending on the different lead sources, how many leads you're getting in, and then how many are converting to clients. If you can just do that and say, like, it costs me $200 to get a client from there and $100 to get a client from there, well, go do more of the thing where you get a client for $100 and exhaust the hell out of that. Like, just get your marketing super dialed in. That office manager role that I talked about, you're probably not the best office manager in the world. That person, I like to call it mother-in-law work, and I don't mean that in any sort of derogatory term. My mother-in-law is awesome, and your mother-in-law or your mom is also usually somebody else's mother-in-law. So it's either your mom or your mother-in-law, but office managers are responsible, consistent, super good at executing processes. They're usually not process builders, but if you gave them a process, they will execute it better than anybody. And they sit at a computer and they invoice people and they pay your bills and they run your CRM. They are the quarterback of your business.
Bro.
That office manager is the quarterback of your business because every customer talks to them and every employee talks to them. They're not the head coach. You're the head coach.
I think the office manager is the brain of the business. That's
a good metaphor, too. Everything has to flow through it.
You looked at me and that was a weird ass Matrix type shit.
Yeah.
Like you went to a different place right
I did. I was just picturing it. Yeah, I went green numbers and letters on screens. But like they have to touch everything. They have to touch everything. And so again, it's not the highest paying job in the company, but I'd say at this level it's the most important job in the company. If you have a good office manager, like the customers can feel it, the employees can feel it. It makes your business a whole lot smoother to have that buffer person in there. It makes your life a lot easier to have a really good office manager. Like they insulate you so much from the little minor problems and the day-to-day stuff in your business. So to get through Purgatory level 1, you just need some admin help. To get through Purgatory number 2, you need a bomb-ass office manager.
A bomb-ass office manager.
Bomb-ass office manager.
Yep.
And again, it's not going to be the most expensive job in your company, but it is the most important.
There are people who have businesses where their office managers are getting huge Christmas bonuses and getting just like living very nice because they create so much value for that business. Yep. They are the rock of the business.
Yep. They're the person where like when employees are having bad days, the employee doesn't want to come talk to you, but they'll go talk to that office manager. The office manager knows what's going on far more than you know what's going on. Big time. Big time. So that's a super important role to get through Purgatory number 2. And then I think we've talked about this a little bit, but when you are buying the toys, buying the assets to go grow the business, finance them. Set your ego aside. There's no value in paying cash for that next truck. Paying cash for that next truck just means your cash flow sucks. You don't have money to go spend on marketing and recruiting to grow your way out of the purgatory. You need to save your cash, finance that vehicle, make
smartly.
Yeah, finance it correctly. Don't go get a 20% interest rate. But I usually, my rule for financing is we try to put 30% down and finance 70%.
Oh, okay, that's very good.
That way, like, we're never underwater on it, right? We're never buying stuff that we can't afford, but we're saving 70% of our cash to go spend on recruiting and marketing because that asset does nothing without a good employee and customers for that good employee to take that asset to.
Oh, so good.
So we use our cash to go get more employees, more customers. That gets you through Purgatory number 2. And you'll get to 800, 900,000. Again, $1 million. You don't want to be at $1 million because you already see what's coming here. 800, 900,000. Your office manager is kind of running the day-to-day stuff. You have crews running 3, 4, 5, 6 crews, whatever you got, depending on what business you're in. You probably have a good ops manager that they report to. So you're doing sales and marketing stuff usually. Maybe you got a salesperson and you're helping them out. But you've got a good office manager, a good ops manager, a good sales system, and you're behind the scenes kind of being the leader. And that kind of like starts to form a little mini leadership team for you, which is pretty cool. And if those are good people in those jobs, you can pay them decently well, and you're pretty insulated. Like that's a nice business to run at the 800 to 900,000 mark. If you're making 15% profit margin, which is kind of like a good, decent profit margin, that's like somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 of profit coming into your pocket, plus you're taking a wage. So you can be making 200,000+ in this business, personal income. It's a pretty sweet spot to be. But everybody wants to be $1 million business, Keith. So you can't just stop at $800,000, $900,000. You got to go for the $1 million. And again, you can probably imagine what's going to happen when you try to go through that next purgatory, which is going to be your ops manager is likely to not be a good general manager, like can't run the business, could oversee the production, but can't necessarily run the business. Maybe your office manager can't either, but you're going to need to decide, are you the GM? Are you the sales manager? Because now you're going to need another salesperson to get over $1 million. And is this leadership team, well, were they just good managers? Or are they really leaders? Can they elevate their team, right? Are they just good at making sure the work gets done? Or are they good at developing their team? Because if your ops manager is only good at getting the work done, but he's not elevating any of that team, well, now when you have like 8 crews running around, he needs a manager working for him. Managers are expensive. And if he's never managed a manager and he's only managed a bunch of techs before, that could all fall apart. Same within the office. Now you're going to need some phone help, some office help. Is that office manager, were they just good at managing their systems and processes, or can they manage another office person, right? And so all of a sudden, your leadership team actually needs to be leaders. And that's where $1 million business is really tough. It's like, who's stepping up to be a leader?
Oh, my God. I work for a huge landscape company. There's 150 employees. And so each division had like anywhere from 5 to 12 trucks. Let's say 8 trucks per division. And each division had a division manager, and each division manager had their assistant manager. So the division manager ran the division and made sure that that division
they're like a GM. They're like a GM of their little thing.
Yeah, and then the assistant manager's job was to make sure all the crews, they would visit all the job sites every day and make sure that the quality was on point of everything. And I'm just seeing all that in my head right. Then they had an entire office staff team, and they had like HR, and then they had an HR manager, and they had constant applicants and interviewing people. That way that the owners' jobs were just to run like I don't know exactly what they did, but they weren't running around like. But I was like, dude, this business, I think the business did $13.5 million.
Yeah,
and so they were deep into that EOS stuff.
Well, and I'm 99.9% sure there was a point in time when they were putting all that together. And they were in this purgatory. Because when they built that, I bet that was expensive as hell to build out. Right? Because the first GM division manager that they hired, I bet wasn't still there. No. I bet it was the wrong person. And I bet one of their assistant managers, or 10 of them, ended up not being the right person, right? Because you're trying to figure out, like, when you first start developing that, you don't get it right the first time.
Yeah, they built an entire division. I won't say what it was. And then there was years that it made no money at all, an entire division, and then they downsized the division. So it's like at that point. Anyways, I'm getting off on the. Keep going, man.
But I think that's the thing in our business, right? Like that division was going through its own purgatories. So
wow,
that $1 million business is usually the most challenging one, because trying to, like, you start out, you need to hire some technicians, then you need to start hiring some office help, right? The first 2 purgatories are just people that are going to report to you. And you're still the leader. And to get through $1 million, you need a leadership team that can lead the people, so you don't have to be the only leader that's there. You have people that are spreading your culture around. You're not the only culture spreader. And that's really hard to find those people and to figure out how to, like, you're leading leaders. So how do you enable them to be a good leader? Are you a good leader of leaders, or were you just a good manager of leaders? So there's some like weird questions going on there to help get you past $1 million. Here's some of my bullet points. Marketing gets kind of tricky here, because you're a lot of times you're really exhausting the things that you feel comfortable with. And so you kind of need a marketing R&D budget, like a research and development budget, where you're almost gambling. You're like, we're going to go try radio ads, and we're going to play with them for a while, but our return expectations of this marketing that we're doing here is lower, because we're going to go just test this thing, right? Like, you're spending money on tests just to find the next thing. You oftentimes at this level start acquiring a bunch of businesses, because it's expensive to go test that marketing. But if you go buy a business, well, that's just another form of client acquisition and employee acquisition. Now, hopefully you're buying a business where the culture is similar and the operating style is similar, because if you're buying businesses that are super different than yours, that can be a disaster. But buying other businesses is a great way to grow, especially at this level, because you have some capital, you have the money to buy the other business. And if you can integrate it, like, you have a framework to bring them in. So you might need the talent. You might buy another business because their general manager you need to bring into your leadership team. You might buy it because you can't find the marketing levers. You need a bunch of clients, right? So there's a lot of reasons to start looking at acquisitions around that level. One thing that gets off the rails at that level is your administrative costs, because you have an office manager, and then you have a salesperson or 2, and then you're paying your salary. And it's easy to figure out if technicians are making you money. You can look at what was on their schedule that day. What do you pay them? How long did it take them to do it? Whatever. Like, you can tell today if a technician is making you money. Administrative people, way harder to tell if they're making you money today. Oh, our office manager was on the phone for 20 minutes with Mrs. Jones. Did she make us money today? Well, Mrs. Jones is a repeat client. Like, we didn't actually invoice her today, right? And they were mostly just talking about the weather, but that's a good relationship to have. But is that valuable, or should that have been a 5-minute phone call? And in those 15 minutes that she was still on the phone with Mrs. Jones, we missed 3 other leads that came in the door, and now we got to try to call them back, right? So it's like, is that good or is it bad? It's way harder to tell if your administrative people are being productive. Every administrative person is busy. But are they busy making you money, or are they busy like playing Minesweeper on their computer, right? And so your administrative overhead, you really need to scrutinize at that level and make sure that it's airtight, because it's easy to bleed there. It's easy to hire too many admin people, because every admin person forever always said that they were busy. Ever. They're always busy. But are they busy with the right stuff, making you money, or are they busy like dicking around on the computer, not adding value? So it's just it's not like a right or wrong answer sort of thing. It's just something to really scrutinize. And the last thing I would say is like developing your leadership team. EOS is a great system and a great process to start putting in place then. You could put it in place earlier. It's just kind of funny earlier.
Wait, that's why these business owners at that level, they're tracking all the calls and leads and how long on the phone with each call and how many of them were closed and how many turned into actual quotes, and they're measuring all that stuff because it's the pain of them bleeding out. They're like, we got to start plugging these holes and measuring what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, we got to know where we're losing. It's all components. It's all, and part of that is why you need good bookkeeping, right? Like, you need to know how much you're spending on these things to even calculate a lot of that stuff. So it's all part of the scoreboard, and it's so easy. If you have a really good scoreboard, it becomes really easy to be like, here's the problem. But if it's just total chaos and you don't have a good scoreboard, it's like, okay, we're doing $1 million in revenue, but we're making only $50,000 of profit. We know we're supposed to make like $150,000. Where's the problem? I don't know. Like, this technician's an asshole, and this office person keeps calling in. It's like,
and then like a meeting, people start pointing fingers, and it's an argument. It's like, well, this person is that, and then all this emotion. Instead of just saying, look at the data. It's right here.
And that's why, like, when we do the bookkeeping, that's why it's always in the 5 different buckets, because it's just 5 different types of decisions that you make. And a lot of times,
what are they?
Cost of goods sold for your production-related decisions. That's and then gross margin, you said it right after that. Gross margin is how much you get as the business owner to reinvest. So bucket number 1, cost of goods sold. Now you have 4 other decisions to make, and they're all investments. Cost of goods sold is a true expense. We need to go do Mrs. Jones's job. It's going to cost us this to do it. Everything after your gross profit now is a true investment that has to generate a return. The first one is marketing. Marketing obviously has to generate a return. You're going to put money in here. You want to spit money out there. So that's your ad spend.
I psychically know Austin Douglas from Ditch the Itch is listening to this right now. He's like, what's up, Austin? Sorry, he's going to come back. I listened to the whole podcast, and I'm implementing it.
I'm sure next time I see him, I'm sure we'll have a couple bush lights and talk about it.
Yeah, all right, keep going.
I haven't seen Austin in a while.
Buckets.
So the first investment you make, second bucket, but first investment you make is usually marketing, ad spend, SEO. Like, there's some labor in there. There's some software in there if you're using like a Nice Job or a Sotellus to get Google reviews, anything that's lead generating. Those are the first investments that you're making. The second set of investments are administrative overhead. Those are like your people infrastructure, your office manager, your bookkeeper, all the people that are helping you build that scoreboard. They're not out in the field generating revenue, right? If you're doing sales or if you're in the office, you're in the admin bucket. So it's all the people behind the scenes kind of coordinating the work that gets done and measuring the work that gets done that aren't out in the field. That's your administrative overhead. And again, that's where I'm saying, like, in this Purgatory 3, that group has to be lights out, because it's easy to bleed money there because it's harder to tell if they're making you money. It just is. Easy to tell if the guys in the field are making money. Hard to tell if the people in the office are making money. So that's why you got to have good tracking of your marketing metrics and stuff like that. We would even track live answer rate. Like, did we pick up the phone or did we take a voicemail? Because if you take a voicemail, that client interaction all of a sudden takes 5 times as long. Because then you call them back, and then you got to explain, hey, how is this? Like, if you would have answered the call the first time, it takes way less time. If you have to call them back, you're chasing each other around all over the place. So we used to track live answer rate for that reason. After administrative overhead, the fourth bucket, third investment that you make is fixed overhead. infrastructure stuff, rent, utilities, operating software like Jobber, your CRM, or your phone system, liability insurance, stuff like that, like all the fixed bills you pay. It's all the super, super boring stuff because you just pay a monthly fee.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just like a thing you just constantly have to monitor because you don't want to have a whole shitload of infrastructure because you can't pass those costs along. You can't go to Mrs. Jones and be like, Mrs. Jones, I just subscribed for this super expensive CRM, so I'm going to need to raise your price. Mrs. Jones doesn't care about your CRM. It's just not a concern to her, right? So your infrastructure costs, you just you're always trying to like right size it for your business. The last investment that you make is what I call variable overhead, and it's all reactive types of decisions. Whereas your fixed overhead is all proactive types of decisions, right? You set a CRM up, and then you use that going forward. You set up liability insurance, and that's your liability insurance going forward. You set up a phone system, and you use that going forward. It's like this proactive decision, and then you pay the bill every month. Variable overhead is all reactive decisions, meaning every time something happens, you make a brand new decision. Repairs and maintenance. Hey, Keith, your mower broke. Oh, I can fix that with duct tape. Oh, I'm going to wrench on it tonight. Oh, shit, I got to take it into the shop, right? The right answer might be any of those three. And just because last time you fixed it with duct tape doesn't mean next time something breaks, you're not going to take it into the shop, right? And you might have wrenched on it this time, but that was only because you had time. Maybe next time you're too busy, you don't have time to wrench on it, so you got to hire somebody else to wrench on it. So repairs and maintenance is a reactive decision almost every time. You proactively do things to try to reduce it, but how you solve the problem is a reactive one. And so, other things that go in there, education, events, leadership development stuff, recruiting I put in there because if you're proactive about recruiting, you can do it way more cost effectively than if you're reactive about it. Meals, travel, me coming here to be on the show with you is a bunch of variable expenses for me. I got travel, I got meals, got a couple of Coors Lights that I bought, stuff like that. And so all of those different buckets are different types of decisions. So when you're meeting with your leadership team, in this case, like we're talking about, you'd be looking at which bucket are we winning in and which buckets are we losing in, so that you're not trying to address all of the problems in the business. You're addressing the ones that are like the most obvious, the most evident. And as you scale your business, those problems are going to keep changing too. The parts of your P&L that where you win and where you lose are going to change because different things at different stages in the business get harder or easier to manage. And you're going to have people that you hold accountable to manage those different sections of the P&L. So yeah, when you get to that purgatory level 3 and you're trying to get through $1 million, a lot of it is looking at that P&L and saying, where are we winning? Where are we losing? For us in our window cleaning business in Minneapolis, again, back to how we got through the last two purgatories, our cost of goods sold has gotten really high and out of line. Some of it was we had like $12,000 worth of ladders get stolen, so we had to like replace them all. That was a shitload of money to buy those ladders. We have a ton of training pay. We turned over some people. We hired a lot of people. We had a bunch of training pay. And we wanted to like offer some different benefits and stuff like that, so that cost us some money. And all of that kind of equated
$12,000 in ladders at it. I don't know if you guys so you do a 30% profit margin or something, or 15. You could have to do $80,000 in work just to replace that $12,000 in ladders.
Yep. Yeah, dude, that one hurt. That hurt a lot. It was just like, and it's like one of those things where we didn't want to file an insurance claim because we had a different insurance claim that we had just filed. And every time you file an insurance claim, like you eventually pay for it.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's like, so we just had to eat it, like just $12,000 right out of pocket for a bunch of new ladders. So the problems again you're not immune as you scale the business, and the solutions get more complicated sometimes, especially if you get like heavy on admin. It's like, it's hard to fire people, and it's not like they're not doing anything, but maybe you just don't have them working on the right stuff. And so you solve those problems, you get through that purgatory, you do 1.2, 3, 4, 5 million. You're going to keep running into purgatories. Like it's never going to stop. You're going to always keep hitting sticky levels in the business where you've never been before. You have a new set of problems to solve. You have new people on your team that haven't solved those problems yet before. And so every time you get stuck, that's what it is. It's just a new set of problems you haven't solved before. The nice thing is there's usually people out there that have solved them. And in most cases in our industries, they like to help. it's not hard to find somebody that will give you advice. The problem is a lot of times it's too easy to find people that will give advice for free on Facebook that don't know what they're talking about.
Bro, you just gave me a huge business epiphany that I was slightly aware of, but now it's solidified in my brain.
Hit me with it.
Building a business that relies mostly off one-off jobs. There might be people come back once every year, a couple of years, or whatever, maybe even twice a year. If you don't turn that customer into a client, into a raving fan, and some type of recurring revenue client where you don't have to go out and get a new customer, like pay to market and advertise and build a relationship and all this shit, then you are constantly filling up that one big hole in a bucket that's constantly draining with time, energy, and money. So building a business that has recurring revenue model that grows and grows and grows on the back end with clients that are sticky, that keep coming back at least every quarter or something. And if you don't have that, then you better raise the average ticket of your job. So you're not you're not the $99 guy. It's got to be hundreds or thousands of dollars. Like a roofing company, they're doing roofs that are 30, 50, 100 grand. So it's okay that they're one-off jobs because each roof is boom, 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 boom.
There's enough meat on the bone to pay until the next one.
Meat on the bone. All right, keep going.
Yeah. I mean, as far as purgatories go, I'm done. I think that's as far as we need to go. I think the biggest thing is people just need to know you're going to run into one no matter what phase of your business you're in. And it's okay to not want to go to the next one, right? Know which set of problems you want. And at different points in your life, different sets of problems are going to be sexy. Just know that there's always going to be a set of problems out there, whether you stay small, go medium, go big, whatever it is. The biggest thing to know is that it's going to be rough getting there. It's a journey. Enjoy the journey. It's part of the fun. Solving those problems is part of the fun. It just sucks if you don't know what's going to happen. If you don't know you're going to go from being a solopreneur and then you're going to start losing money, you were just making $100,000 and now you're going to start losing money to try to do something that's harder. If you didn't know that was going to happen, that's fucking miserable, right? If you knew it was going to happen, you'd be like, how am I going to get through this as fast as I can with losing the least amount of money that I can and still enjoying myself and liking my business? That's a way, same thing is about to happen, but that's a way different approach to solving those problems and getting to the next level. And so just know that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Have fun with it. Enjoy the process. Solve the problems. Get through it. But know that it's going to happen. It'll be sticky. You got it.
Bro. I'm so happy for everybody listening right now. Reach out. Where can they find you on all platforms?
Check me out. I'm mostly on Facebook, despite my disliking of it. I'm mostly on Facebook, so go check Dan Platta out on Facebook. The Home Service Happy Hour group. We got a private group where we stream the podcast, so go check out the Home Service Happy Hour. I still need to build my website for my new business, but the URL is bestdamnbookkeeping.com, so go check that out. And if you want to grab time with me, you can go to my Calendly link, which is calendly.com/bestdamnbookkeeping. Then just grab some time. We'll nerd out on your business.
I love this, bro. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the Untrapped podcast. We're not done yet. Just one more closing minute here.
We still got to get into how to hire people too. We got more
on this podcast.
I don't know. Do we want to do it on this one or do we want to do it on another episode?
I think that we're going on 2 hours now, so we should stop here.
Oh, God, I got to get to the airport, don't I?
Yeah. But I have uploaded some videos on the Window Cleaning Blueprint YouTube channel. This podcast will be live. It'll be on the Untrapped Podcast YouTube channel. It'll be on my Keith Kelfus. There's going to be clips floating around on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Go back to Dan's Happy Hour. What is it?
Home Service Happy Hour.
Home Service Happy Hour. Home Service Happy Hour. Go on Facebook right now and check out his podcast. It's awesome. And then if you need your books done, if you want to get your finances organized, Dan Platta, bestdamnbookkeeping.com.
Best Damn Bookkeeping. Just run out to my Calendly link and grab time there. I do need to get my website up. I'm working on it.
I love this.
It's part of the getting to Purgatory #1. In that business, I'm not even to Purgatory #1 yet. So I got to build the website. It's all part of the fun.
Dude.
Loving the journey.
Thanks for being on my show.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Now we're gonna have to do like a remote one because we gotta talk about the hiring.
Of course,
stuff.
we're gonna.
We gotta.
Yes.
The people need it. The people
Yes.
need it.
So good. I'm gonna go back and listen to this myself and take notes. All right. Thanks so much. Please leave the podcast a well-worded review on Apple or Spotify. It helps boost the ratings. And yeah, just stop right there. Peace.
Dude.
Hey, I hope you liked the show. And if you like the Untrapped podcast and you get value from it, can you please take a minute and go over to Spotify and leave it a well-worded positive 5-star review? It helps boost the rankings on Spotify so the show can get to more people. Therefore, these messages can get out to more people and inspire more people so then they can go out and start their small businesses and crush it and get to the next level. It's a huge deal. All right, I'll see you in the next show.